Okay, so here we go for another math lesson. I hope you have your math book, your math notebook. We're on page 277, a whiteboard or some scratch paper and a pencil, and we're ready to go. So, first, with a little review, if we look at this problem, find 1/2 of 6. We want to know, what is this problem asking you to do? Think for a second what we do with this word of. What does this word of tell us to do? Hopefully, you're thinking it's telling us to multiply. So hold that thought for just a second and look right here. 1/2 of 6 is multiplying 6. 1/2. We know when we write a whole number as a fraction, we put it over 1, so it still keeps its value of 6. And then we get 6/2. If we simplify that, 6 divided by 2, we get 3. So today we're going to find some products of decimals, and we're going to use equivalent decimal fractions. So remember this word product. Product means the answer to a multiplication problem. And we're using decimals and equivalent decimal fractions. So we're going to think about what a fraction is and how it's equivalent to a decimal. So look at this problem. 5/10, or that's the same thing as a half of 2, or 1/2, 1 5/10 of 2. Which do you think is bigger and why? So hold that thought for just a second and let's look here. So remember, we've talked about this. What happens to a number when you multiply it by less than 1? So think of any number and you multiply it by a scale fraction of less than 1. Does it get bigger or smaller? Hopefully you're thinking that it gets smaller. So if we come back here, if you multiply something by less than 1, it's going to make it smaller. So if we go back to this problem, is this less than 1? So it's going to be smaller than 2, your answer. This is greater than 1, so your answer is going to be greater than 2. Coming back here, we're going to look at this. We're going to look at multiplying decimals. We're going to come up with an answer. We're going to start with some multiplication, and we're going to try and figure out where our answer should sit. So if we go to our estimation, this is the first problem in your notes, and we have 7/10 times 8/10. What are we going to estimate? What are we going to round or change 7/10 into? This 7, is it going to make it go up or down? It's going to become 1. 8/10, we're going to round that also to 1. And we know that 1 times 1 is 1. So our answer is going to be around 1. So think for a second. Our answer is not going to be exactly 1, but should it be bigger than 1 or smaller than 1? So think about this and why. Hopefully you're thinking it's going to be less than 1 because this is less than 1. This is less than 1. We rounded both of these numbers up, so this actual estimation should be a little bit high. So when we come to the next slide, our answer is going to be between what? It's going to be between 0 and 1. Because if we rounded this down, it would be 0. We rounded this down, it would be 0. 0 times 0 is 0. So our answer has got to be somewhere between 0 and 1. So look at this. Equivalent fractions. That was in the beginning in our standards. An equivalent fraction. We say this. That's why it's important to know how to say your numbers. If you can say it, you can write it multiple ways. So we say this as 7. What place value is this in? The tenths. So 7/10 we write as a fraction 7/10. Same thing. We say this is 8/10. We write that as a fraction 8/10. Now, when we multiply fractions, remember we do not need common denominators. It just so happens that we have them, but we don't need them. When we multiply fractions, we multiply straight across. Multiply your numerators, multiply your denominators. So 7 times 7, I'm sorry, 7 times 8 is 56. 10 times 10 is 100. So now we get a fraction of 56 hundredths. It's important that we know how to say that. 56 hundredths. If we have 56 hundredths, we can also write that as a decimal, 56 hundredths. Now remember, when you're saying a decimal, the last number, we pretend this decimal is not there. We say 56, and we make sure that the last digit that we say is in the hundredths place value. So this is in the hundredths place value, so we're correct in saying 56 hundredths. So now our answer, is it between 0 and 1? Is it actually smaller than our 1? That's an estimation. It is. So why? It's smaller because we're taking 8/10 and we're multiplying it by something that is smaller than 1. So it's going to be smaller than 8/10. Is this smaller than 8/10? It is. Okay, I'm going to let you pause the video for a second and try this. Remember, change your 4/10 to a fraction, change your 7/10 to a fraction, multiply straight across. Don't forget your estimation. Okay, hopefully you're back, and this is what you got. When we multiply, we round this down to 0. We round this to 1, but 0 times 1 is 0. It's going to be somewhere between 0 and 1. 4 times 7 is 28. 10 times 10 is 100. 28 hundredths. Okay, next problem. Now we have a whole number, and we have a mixed number, a whole number with a decimal, and then a decimal. So let's start with our estimation again. 2 and 4/10, we're going to estimate, we're going to round it to 2. And then our 3/10, we're going to round it down, and it's going to be 0. But our answer, we know, is going to be more than 0. So if we rounded this up, right, it's going to be above that. If we rounded it up, it's going to be, we could round this up to 1 and this up to 3. So we rounded down for these, but if we rounded up to 3 and up to 1, 1 times 3 is 3. So our answer is going to be somewhere between 0 and 3. So an improper fraction, we know this is 2 and 4/10. If we have 2 and 4/10, it's the same thing as 24/10. Has the same value because that 2 is worth 20. Then we have 3/10, and it's going to look like that. So again, when we multiply our fractions, we multiply straight across. So we're going to do 24 times 3. 24 times 3, we're going to do 3 times 4 is 12, carry your 1. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So our numerator is 72, and 10 times 10 is 100. So we have 7,200. When we convert that back from a fraction back into a decimal, we get 7,200. Now, notice when we said 72 hundredths, the last digit is also in the hundredths place. That's going to be important in a minute, the hundredths. So, why is my answer written in hundredths when I multiplied by tenths? Because we have 10 times 10 is 100. So our answer is bigger than this because we are multiplying by a number that is bigger than 1. So we have 3/10 multiplied something bigger than 1, so it's going to be bigger than what you started with. So pause the video again, and I want you to try this one. Remember, go from a decimal to a fraction, multiply, and then go back to your decimals. Okay, you're unpaused and check your work. Let's take a look at this screen. Make sure you estimated. We would say it's going to be around 3, but we rounded down. We rounded this one down, so it's probably going to be a little bit more. 7/10. Then we have 3 and 2/10, which is the same as 32/10. When you multiply 32 times 7, you get 224. Now look at this for a second. We have 224 hundredths. If you got rid of this decimal, we would still say this number, 224, but our 4 is still in the hundredths place. That's how we know we have to put this decimal right here between the twos. So we keep this in the right place value. 2 and 24 hundredths. 224 hundredths. So here, next problem. 2 and 3/10 times 4 and 6/10. Let's estimate. 2 and 3/10, we will round to 2. 4 and 6/10 will round up to 5. So our answer is going to be somewhere around 10. Now, if we rounded this up to 3 and this down to 4, it would be somewhere between 12. So you could say between 10 and 12, or if you rounded this down to 2 and you rounded this down to 4, it would be 8. If you rounded this up to 3 and this up to 5, it would be 15. So it's going to be somewhere here, depending on how close your estimation is to your actual number, the closer you're going to be here. So equivalent improper fraction, 2 and 3/10 is 23/10. 4 and 6/10 becomes 46/10. Now when we need to multiply straight across, we're going to multiply 23 times 46. So here, again, this is what we just finished this standard. We're going to do 6 times 3. We get 18, carry the 1. Then we're going to do 6 times 2 plus 1, and we get 13. Now, don't forget your placeholder 0. Put your placeholder 0, get rid of this 1 because we're done using it. Now we're going to use the 4. 4 times 3 is 12. Carry the 1. 4 times 2 plus 1 is 9. Let's add them up. 8, 5, 10. So our numerator is 1058. 10 times 10 is 100 for our denominator. So when we go here, we're going to write 1058 hundredths. That hundredths, that 8 has to be in the hundredths place. So when we do that, it's going to look like this. So we still have the same digits, but the decimal has to be right here for this 8 to be in the hundredths place. Okay, then ask yourself, why is it bigger? Well, because we multiplied by something bigger than 1, so our answer is bigger. And this is pretty close to what we said our estimation would be. Okay, pause again. Try this one on your whiteboard. Okay, unpause. And here we go again. If we rounded down to 3, down to 5, we would get somewhere around 15. When you multiplied 31 times 54, check your math. If you did not get 1,674, check right here. Did you remember your placeholder 0? Did you regroup correctly? Did you multiply correctly? Did you add correctly? So check your multiplication. Then again, 1,674 hundredths. This 4 needs to be in the hundredths place. This is the tenths, hundredths. And there you have 16 and 74 hundredths. Okay, here's a challenge one. Think about here. Now you have 2 digits, 12 and 3/10 times 4 and 5/10. I'll pause and let you try that one. Okay, unpause. Good luck. Did you get 55 and 35 hundredths? So again, check your multiplication here. Make sure first you started with the correct fractions, 123 tenths times 45 tenths. You multiplied and you got 5,535 hundredths. And since it's in the hundredths place, your 5 has to be in the hundredths. This is the tens, the ones, the tenths, and the hundredths. Okay, these are your last two problems before you head on to your problem set and your homework page on 278 and 279.